Thanks for joining us on our streaming service for your drought alert. I'm your first alert meteorologist, Callie Zanandri. This week's drought monitor shows some modest improvements across portions of the northern mountains, eastern plains, and southeastern Colorado. However, it's not all good news. Parts of Montrose and Ouray counties seeing conditions deteriorate, with areas of moderate drought now classified as severe drought. Looking ahead, the long-range forecast for temperatures to remain warmer than average across Colorado. The good news is the precipitation outlook favors wetter than average conditions as we head through the middle of June. Joining us today is Sarah Milanig, and Director of Operations and Strategic Engagement for the One Water Solutions Institute and Water Tap at CSU Spur, and Judah Gaioni, Director of the Colorado Stormwater Center and Professional Engineer. Thanks for being here, Sarah and Judah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, water, a hot topic. We've gotten a little bit of rain recently. So a question I've been getting a lot is, are we still in a drought?
Absolutely, an important question, and an important answer is yes. Little amounts of precipitation do not offset long-term drought conditions. We were talking yesterday, we could think of Colorado's reservoirs as like large Olympic-sized swimming pools, and throwing a bucket of water in a swimming pool doesn't make a very big difference.
Yeah, and so we talk about stormwater management, we talk about two primary things. We talk about stormwater quantity and we talk about stormwater quality. So an easy way to understand it in Colorado is this idea of the snowpack in the tops of the mountains acting as a kind of frozen water tower. And so it packs up over the course of the year, and then as the summer months come in, it slowly releases that water. As we hit drought conditions, 2 or 3 rain events isn't going to impact the drought conditions. It's pretty easy to understand within the context of the snowpack.
Now, how do we become more resilient both to drought and flooding? Because it's surprising to a lot of people, they go hand in hand.
Absolutely. So the water industry and our team at the One Water Solutions Institute are moving towards a one water approach, which is a way to value water as a shared resource, whether it's rivers and lakes, wastewater, drinking water, storm water, gray water. All water has value and all water is shared, and all water is connected. So having a one water approach allows us to be a little bit more intentional about matching the right water source with how it's going to be used to also ensure human and environmental health is protected.
Yeah, and you know, the consequence of drought are multifaceted, but one of the things in the framework of flooding is that the surface conditions actually harden. So like the soils themselves become less capable of infiltrating water. So when we get those rain events, it's much more likely that the water in large volume and in large speeds are going to flow off of the surface and into our communities and potentially risk public health and safety.
Now, what is Water Tap, and how is CSU helping advance solutions to these challenges?
So Water Tap is the Water Technology Accelerator platform. It's located at CSU Spur's Hydro Building. It's a first-of-its-kind laboratory that is designed to advance water treatment technologies. We like to say bringing tech off the benchtop and into the building scale. So what's unique about the facility is that we have access to on-site real-world water sources that are generated at the building scale. A great example of a really important system is Greta. Greta is Colorado's first commercial and fully legal gray water collection and reuse system. So she collects water from hand washing sinks and showers that are located in the locker rooms in the Hydro Building, collected in our lab, treated, and then it's actually reused to flush the toilets rather than using potable water.
Yeah, and so in stormwater management, when we talk about innovation in the water tap in particular, we're talking more about the water quality elements. So the water quantity elements, when you talk about flood controls, they're kind of established mathematical and sort of engineering principles that are applied throughout our communities. When you start talking about the more frequent events that mobilize pollutants that exist within our watersheds, that's a much more new and novel field. And so the water tap presents us an opportunity to have on-site collection of stormwater from that particular watershed, collect it, store it, and then use it in novel research projects. Like we have a bioretention cell, which people commonly call like rain gardens, where we can kind of optimize whether it's the vegetation that exists within the system or the media mix that we have there. That's just the kind of example of the types of projects that we're able to work on in that water tap system.
Such cool stuff going on there. So we have these solutions, but Colorado has some really unique water laws. How does that shape innovation and water reuse?
Yes, a really critical question. So Colorado is a headwaters state, and the Colorado River is responsible for supplying water to 40 million people, 7 western states, the country of Mexico, as well as irrigating millions of acres of farmland. So we have an obligation here in Colorado to ensure that our downstream users keep the water that they're entitled to. So at the water tap, we are pretty proud of a very detailed water augmentation plan that allows us to collect the different sources that we have on site. We actually document that. We report it monthly to the state of Colorado, the Division of Water Resources, and we actually lease the same amount that we collect in the lab from Denver Water, and they discharge the same volume back into the river to ensure that we're not impacting volumetric downstream quantities so that the downstream users are not impacted.
Yeah. And when you're talking about stormwater management, I lost my train of thought actually. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So we have a lot of these solutions you guys are talking about, but we also have a lot of unique laws, a lot of regulations.
Right.
So how do you put this all together?
So it's difficult. We're kind of faced with two fronts. On the one hand, we have strict water rights where we have to make sure that we're releasing waters and not collecting it, hence the augmentation plan. But on the other side, we have increasing drought conditions, and we want to manage our stormwater resources in a way to kind of treat them as a resource rather than a waste product, which is kind of the historic paradigm that we would operate within a stormwater engineering framework, where we just want to get the big flood events away from our communities to protect life and safety. But now we've kind of switched that from a water quality perspective, where we want to try to manage those resources and utilize the benefit. There's a series of regulations associated with that through the municipal separate storm sewer system permit that's issued to every local government throughout the country, actually. And each unique community has to problem solve those challenges for themselves to kind of meet the interests and opportunities and needs of their particular community.
Now, for viewers watching at home, real quick, what are some simple things they can do to conserve and protect water resources?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of actions that individual citizens can take that are pretty easy to implement. Simple things like turning off the water when you're washing your hands or brushing your teeth, making sure if you do have irrigation systems like sprinklers are pointed the right direction, that you're watering at the appropriate times of the day, pick up your pet waste, use fertilizer responsibly, skip the phosphorus, and also consider Colorado-scaping or using water-wise landscaping. Rain gardens are a great example, rain barrels for homeowners to irrigate portions of their outdoor landscaping with as well.
Yeah, and I think overall the concept is prioritization of stormwater management. So there are plenty of opportunities individuals can take, and then there are obligations that organizations have in order to kind of maximize that resource for beneficial use throughout our communities. And so what we would encourage people to do is kind of try to identify kind of educational opportunities and pragmatic sorts of things that they can do to try to reduce pollutants and like kind of contain the amount of pollution sources that there are. There are types of engineered systems. People kind of refer to them commonly as green infrastructure and low impact development, maybe nature-based solutions, and they actually distribute throughout the watershed. And they're both publicly owned and privately owned. And so if you're a private property owner and your HOA, for example, has to maintain this system in order to facilitate water quality, to do life safety protection around flood control, that becomes a really important thing to know as an HOA, because you might not know. And so like, how do you educate yourself? And are there training opportunities that are available to you? Are there just like educational resources available to you that would kind of help you understand what the expectations and needs are?
Well, Sarah and Judah, thank you so much. Such great information. And for more information, you can go to our website. We'll have some links there at cbscolorado.com. And we will see you back here next week for your Drought Alert.